Hello, this is Morris Ruddick. We've been discussing Jewish business secrets. In this session, we're going to review the Jewish strategy that unlocks destiny. This is a strategy that develops both businesses and the community. It's the simple things that confound the wise. It is the narrow path of the corridor connecting the seen world and the unseen world. One of the means of harnessing these elements of community has involved a strategy that Jews have employed for hundreds of years. Whenever 10 Jews live within walking distance of one another, they form a minyan. The minyan serves two primary purposes. First is to pray and seek God. Second is to help each other become more successful. It represents the foundation in establishing community. We have employed and adapted this strategy with our program in diverse cultural settings. It can operate with as many as 5 or 6 members. When the numbers exceed 15 or so, it is time to divide the group and start another group. Those leading these minyan groups are selected based on 2 main criteria. First, they are spiritually mature, and second, they have a track record of success in business ownership. Again, these are groups of people who have or want to start their own businesses. It provides regular opportunity to pray and seek God and to help each other become successful. It is a means for the members to be mentored and grow spiritually while providing opportunity to birth new businesses. The group should meet at least twice a month, with not more than 2 hours allotted for each meeting. If time frames are not set, then attendance will wane and commitment will be eroded. It involves a commitment among its members, understanding that promptness sometimes has cultural challenges. Members of the group should make every effort to arrive on time, and the group should start on time. The first hour for the gathering is devoted to prayer. Each member should bring 4 to 5 written, one-sentence prayer requests concerning the operation or plans for their business or the business they want to start. The leader of the group should collect these prayer requests and then redistribute them among the people in the gathering. Going around the room, each person is given the opportunity to pray out loud for the business-related prayer request of one of the others of those attending. This not only garners effective prayer for the participants, but it gives each member the opportunity to become comfortable and effective in praying in a group setting. The second hour should be focused on mentoring. At the discretion of the leader, it can involve a topic of business, or it can focus on 2 to 3 individuals who share something in common with their businesses. It is written that iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance and expertise of another. This is the time in which expertise can be shared, questions asked, and members encouraged in the ways needed to make God their senior partner. These groups will be comprised of people of various talents. Some will have expertise in promotions, others in accounting. It represents a safe place and means by which members can gain insight from the experience and expertise of other members. Again, the goal is to help each other become successful while growing spiritually. As these groups meet and engage in this way, trust will be fostered and important business decisions and steps will be prayed for. The interactions and process will encourage discipline and accountability. When the minyan strategy is working as it should, it enhances the success of new startups. We encourage those we work with to start small, even when the vision is big. It is written, that little by little will you possess the land. It is better to walk before you run. When I started my first business, I was eager. However, there was a gap in my experience that distorted issues, such as timing. This is typical of new startups. This is why it is important to have 2 to 3 wise mentors, experienced in such things, along with a minion support group to bring wisdom to the process. Starting something new will involve changing the order of things. That means understanding the factor of timing. I've already stated that timing is often the hardest arena to accurately discern when seeking God. When you are eager, as I was when I started my first business, things tend to take longer than you expect. That means that if you have invested everything you have into the effort, that you need a contingency in case things don't happen as quickly as you envision. At the forefront of the reasons that new startups fail is the lack of planning, the lack of good accounting, and the lack of good advice. In my case, it took longer than I expected, but I refused to give up. I set up meetings to give presentations in 3 key cities with the offices of firms in my industry. I got in front of people and boldly shared my expertise, but in a way that was practical to their needs. But the path to first contracts took time. Jewish wisdom suggests that you cast your bread upon the waters, and it will return in due season. I did. It still didn't happen as quickly as I envisioned. Perseverance is a vital attribute in this process. That also is why it is important to start small and keep your overhead minimized until the cash flow is released. I didn't have a minion group when I started my company. It would have helped a lot. But then came a time when things began to turn. The contracts began being approved, and the wisdom needed at that stage was in pacing the growth. I became quite active in a number of community and professional organizations. There came a shift as I was becoming a community builder, a person of influence. Whereas the primary purpose of minion groups is to provide the first step toward community builders, the small group dynamic can also be a vital part of strengthening entrepreneurial members once the community is established. After my business became stable, I became a part of just such a group. At a point where my business had grown to have offices in 2 U.S. cities and was doing business with respected multinational firms, a group of like-minded business owners began meeting regularly. We met for prayer and to support one another in our respective and sometimes overlapping activities in the marketplace. Within the group was the president of a bank. He was also the starter. He was the man who started this bank. Also, the president of the largest advertising firm in our state. And the president of a large regional printing company was a part, as well as the former president of one of our city's largest manufacturers. There were others, but each one sensed a strong call of God on their lives. Each was a game changer. Each in their own way was intent on understanding God's heart and more strategically advancing the calling of God in the marketplace. We each were reaching for that something more that only God could provide. All of this came at a time when the parachurch movement was gaining traction, but those in the marketplace still primarily served a role of giving their testimonies and serving on church boards. There were several key initiatives that were the focus of our prayer and strategy sessions. The time frame was the early 1980s. There was a private, citywide, non-denominational school being started. That was a part of what we became involved in. There was also a new type of bank underway. Some of us were involved in advancing the gathering of intercessory leaders in well-promoted meetings at some key locations around the U.S. It was a part of some timely, positive, spiritual momentum underway in our nation. It was more, but you get the idea. It was proactive community building. It is when God's people operate together to create an environment of opportunity that change begins. Community building nurtures the gifts of the emerging generation, and thereby makes a difference. It unlocks secrets that bridge the seen with the unseen. Community is a social system that takes care of its own, as those who are a part are blessed to be a blessing. As such, the long-standing practices of the communities of Jewish people becomes a light shining in a largely otherwise dark world. It is the catalyst for change and for trickle-down blessings. In this series, we've learned that Jewish thinking differs from that of other peoples. So do their strategies. We've seen how the model established by the forebear Abraham merges the combined operation of the spiritual, the economic, and community. Community from a Jewish stance is an assembly of God's people operating beyond that place of human effort by turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. Community that operates with this standard is a safe place, with God at the center as his people share a common purpose, mutually benefiting one another in the application of the diversity of their gifts. In the search for the stepping stones of success, from a Jewish perspective, we've also found different priorities. We've seen that wealth is the byproduct of the process rather than the goal. That represents a big difference in the way entrepreneurs think. We learn that the community itself and its posterity are much more highly valued. We now better understand the strategy of building community, which is the shared responsibility of each member. I'm Morris Ruddick, and next we're going to be talking about the legacy created by all this.